So, as far as I know, maybe it did a little. I'm not sure, but it sounds like the Symphony Under the Stars went off really well, and hopefully, some of you went to that and enjoyed your day. There you go. We do have rain in the forecast. I wanted to real quickly, while Robin is getting our next guest lined up, remind you of something I think is really cool. There is a lady who is going to she's going to be talking about the Old Dixie Highway, and she will be over at the McPherson Complex talking about this. I believe it's May 20th. Is that right, Robin?
Yes, Sunday.
Sunday, May 20th. She's going to be at she's a guest of the Marion County Museum of History and Archaeology, and she's talking about the Old Dixie Highway, where it ran and where it was and where pieces of it still are. There's a portion of some of the roads here in Ocala that are part of the Old Dixie Highway, and it's got an amazing history. A lot of what made Florida were the realtors, the people who built the state and tried to get people to buy land here, right? And so they had to have a way to get here, so they built this old highway. Well, they built a highway. It wasn't old at the time. Called it the Dixie Highway, and so a lot of people who were first buying real estate here, aside from those who were born and raised here, of course. So this goes back to 1857. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Wow, that's just pretty amazing stuff. All right, we do have a guest on the phone. Solange Ritchie is an award-winning attorney, a researcher, and an activist for women, and she's written a book called Firestorm, which is a Dr. Catherine Powers thriller novel, and she wants to talk to us about the book, plus about dealing with the stress of hospitalization and death based on Catherine's true life account. Is that right? Of her first husband dying due to gross medical negligence. Okay, Solange Ritchie, we're going to find this interesting. Good morning, Solange.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you calling from?
I'm actually in Boca Raton, Florida, where we're having a lot of rain.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I heard the south part of the state is. We're getting a little of what you've got. Sounds like it's all over the place.
Yes. So we need the rain, so that's good.
So what confuses me here is Catherine Powers a real person?
No, she's not. She's based on a group of women that I know and people that I've interviewed, but she's not a real person.
Okay. So tell me about the story in Firestorm. Let's start with the story itself.
Okay, well, my first book, The Burning Man, involved Catherine and her young son, and unfortunately he is kidnapped by a very evil serial killer who is referred to in the media as the Burning Man because of the method of his kill. And along the way, Catherine's ex-husband, Mark, gets killed by the Burning Man. So the book Firestorm picks up about a year later. And both Catherine and her young son, Joey, are trying to recover from the loss of Mark. And Catherine gets an envelope in the mail, which is unusual, a large envelope, and it contains a locket of Joey's hair and a photograph of him, basically in the grips of terror of the Burning Man. And there's a note along with that package that comes that basically sends a chill down her spine, and she knows that the killer is back, and he's on the loose again. So. Oh,
wow. And so the fans that you have already established with the first book are going to anxiously read this one.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
sounds
definitely.
Like, yeah. So, so the part of this I don't think I understand is if Catherine is fictional, how is there a true life account of her first husband?
No, yeah, you're a little confused on that. But the true life account of the first husband is actually my first husband, who died due to gross medical negligence at a major hospital in California.
Oh, okay.
When I was 37, and that experience is one of the reasons that I started writing fiction.
Oh, that was my error.
Okay.
I put your character's name in my notes and not your name, so that was my error. I got so involved in this that it's my error.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay. Now it makes sense. Okay, so do your novels have with them a message, a social message?
Yes, definitely. I think that there's a message of women being strong and being capable, and not being the kind of the shrinking violet that we normally see in the thriller and the mystery genre. Usually the victims are women, and in my series of books, obviously Kat is not a victim. She's the lead investigator on some of the most horrific crimes in the country. So that's a little bit of a switch, and that was purposeful on my part. I wanted to see a strong female lead character.
Well, there were strong female lead characters that go hundreds of years back, but there was a time, it seems like, when men, I guess, dominated the writing world, and men. I don't know that we were trying purposefully. I'll include myself in on this. I don't know if we were purposely trying to diminish the strength of women as much as embellish our own. I think. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely, when you read a lot of mysteries and a lot of thrillers, it's usually the gumshoe detective character is the lead, or, you get the ex-military guy who's now no longer in the military and has nothing better to do than go around, chasing bad guys.
Right. Well, here's the irony. With Mother's Day yesterday, everybody's mother was strong. Everybody's mother was smart. Everybody's mother was wise. But nobody says that about their wives.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
It's the wives and girlfriends who become mothers. It's a perspective thing, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
In your writing, you're very descriptive. I mean, we can actually hear the sounds of what's going on throughout the pages. We can actually see visually the places that the events are happening in.
Yes, yeah, that's purposeful, and that's a very nice compliment. Thank you. I write in a very, very visual style, and a very, when I write, I kind of close my eyes and I think about, not only what is the scene, but what is the character's reaction to the scene. In Firestorm, people have told me they can actually feel the ash from the fire, like swirling around, and see the, if you have a fire with some force, you have, vortex fire tornadoes that will take place and that kind of thing.
Right.
And people have told me, they can really feel that when they read the book. So that's a huge compliment, because that, as a writer, then you're doing your job. You're taking the reader, sometimes to a place that is comfortable, and sometimes to a place that's not comfortable. But whatever, you want them to be along, to come along with that ride with you.
So does Catherine possess some courage that you don't, or are you, in other words, when you put her into circumstances, do you yourself have to imagine what it would be like for yourself, and then push it a little bit farther than you might have gone?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I work in the law, and that's definitely a male-dominated field, so I can relate to her, her kind of jumping into these scenarios where she's got a lot of men she's dealing with, and strong men who may or may not want her, to kind of interfere with what they think they're doing. But yeah, there's a lot of me in her, and I mean, I can definitely see our similarities in how we deal with things.
Through your writings, you are slowly helping to open the eyes of people in communities, like civic leaders, mayors of towns, and things like that, to really start to accept that women can do the things that men can do in a social sense.
Yes, yeah, and that's purposeful on the part of the character as far as her motives and where she's going. And I really believe that that's part of the message of the books. They're not written for young girls, but I mean, I have had girls as young as 14 read them, and I want girls to come away with this sense of, I can accomplish anything that I put my mind to. And it's not about the fact that you're a woman or a man. It's the fact that you apply yourself to whatever the situation may be, and do your best job, and then things will come your way.
Yeah, in the world that we're living in right now, where famous names are coming into the news, and we're hearing some things that are really disappointing about the men. Bill Cosby, of course, comes to mind. Matt Lauer comes to mind. When we hear those things, as a man, I'll say this, that I feel ashamed. I feel like, well, wait a minute, this is making it look like all men do this, and I guess it's the same when you hear about a woman doing something that you're ashamed of. I'm sure that you or like if I was in another country and I heard about an American doing something, I'd be, oh my gosh, well, how come they, it's always, we always relate to it when it's our team or whatever, or somebody on our team, if that makes sense. But I wonder if you're wondering if all of this isn't just going to be news for a while, and then things will go back to the way they've been.
Yeah, I hope not. I mean,
Me
I really
too.
believe that we're changing as a society. We're becoming more sensitive to the plight of women and what women have gone through. The whole idea of equal pay is still a huge issue as far as I'm concerned. Regardless of the laws that have been passed along those lines. So, I think as a society we're moving forward, and I think that the recent scandals that have occurred with certain individuals are a lesson and an opening of our eyes to what is going on, and the fact that that type of stuff is still out there, and and we need to be vigilant when we deal with it.
Yeah, I think the changes might not happen for the really perverse, if that makes sense. Like somebody who's going to drug women is probably still going to drug women, and hopefully we'll catch them before they get too far gone. But I think some of the other more benign behaviors of men that we're probably all guilty of at one point or another, complimenting somebody's pants, for example, that might be out of place, but nobody meant any harm. That kind of thing. I think maybe we're starting to realize we need to knock that kind of stuff off.
Yeah, and I'm of the belief that a man can still compliment a woman, or in a certain way. But I think when you do it, a lot of it depends on what the circumstances are, and if you're doing it in a closed office with nobody else in the office, and you're kind of coming on to the woman, then that takes on a whole different.
Right.
A different type of undertone. And I think we just need to be vigilant. I'm a big believer that, not all men are that way, but I think we need, as a society, it's good that we're talking about it, and it's good that we're looking for it now.
But even in the past, when we've had female heroines, especially if the story was written by men, it sort of took on that same flavor. Hopefully everybody remember. Do you remember Honey West?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Everybody remembers Honey West if you're our age. And there was a certain sexiness about her character that I don't know if she would have been written the same way in today's world.
Yeah, probably not. Probably she would have been, there would have been a lot more controversy about her character.
More like Catherine.
Yeah, definitely.
You also delve into trauma during childhood and children who are victims of abuse. Some are managed to be survivors, and some do not. Yes.
And again, that's a purposeful on my part. I think if you have a strong protagonist, you also have to have some development of the antagonist, and so that was a purposeful choice on my half. Not to create empathy for the bad guy, but to have you kind of understand what it is that made him or her the way that that they are. Definitely when you do any research into serial killers, there is this tends to be a background of trauma, childhood trauma, neglect that is pervasive. And I think it's one of the things that kind of carries through life. And as you say, some people are capable of kind of overcoming it and breaking the cycle, and others, others do not, and those are the ones that end up in the news. And it's very unfortunate because our system is We just saw it with the shootings, just right down the street at Parkland. Here's a young man who's obviously in need of help, who is having mental health issues, and for whatever reason, the system, didn't reach him in time, and that's really sad, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we don't know his story, but I mean, so often you'll hear about things like that, where there's, I don't know, a jealousy or an unrequited love. Is that the word I'm looking for? What was the guy who shot President Reagan? He did that for an actress, remember?
Yeah, that was Jodie Foster.
Yeah, so I mean, that is kind of a weird quirk about humanity and our our perverted way of thinking this is going to get the girl interested in me, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And on a personal note, when you were growing up, you had a brother with Down syndrome, so you experienced some of that kind of verbal abuse from others.
Yeah, that's true. I always, even though he's older than me, I always, kind of stood up for him because, growing up in Jamaica, especially, not everybody is, as educated as we are today. And so he would get his share of, I don't want to say verbal abuse, but, people would pick on him, and the bullying thing was going on. And I always stood up for him. So, growing up with someone like that, it makes you kind of more sensitive to that. And, he's still a huge part of my life. He's 56, and I actually had a biology teacher at one point in high school who told me, Down's kids don't live to be, anything past 30. And I remember getting so upset. And,
right.
So he's living proof that she was wrong.
Well, we have a friend named Doug. We've known Doug since 1972. He's now 56 or 57, and his mother also was told that he won't live past 30. He lives independently, more or less. And now he's in a group home, but he was independent until just about a year and a half ago. And I took him to his mother's. She was cremated, so we threw her ashes in the water, spread her ashes. I forgot. And I took him to the water yesterday so he could throw a rose into the water. And he's. And I remember when he was younger, we took him to one of the water parks here in Central Florida, and we were on one of those lazy rivers. Yeah. And I witnessed two young girls looking at him, going dook, making fun of him. And I thought, oh my gosh, how ignorant can you be? How is it possible that you don't see who he is and what he is? And anyway, so
I think that's changing though. I think that I know with my brother, he's very outgoing, and people seem to now understand that he's special. And it's nice to see that that's changing in society. People are becoming more sensitive.
You had said that you toned down some of the scenes in the book. Did that make your writing more effective in the different scenarios?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think with violence, you have to be. You can almost take it too far, and so it became better. I think the book became better by toning down some of that stuff. I mean, you can leave some of that stuff to the reader's imagination and let them decide what's. You don't have to describe everything, and I think the classic example of that is the scene in the famous Alfred Hitchcock shower scene where you never see the knife plunge into. Who was it? Janet Leigh.
Yes.
The lead character was the lead, and you never see the knife actually penetrate, but you know she's getting stabbed because you see the blood going down the drain.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson for writers that sometimes less is more.
Solange Ritchie is our guest. Her book is called Firestorm. You are obviously a multi-leveled author. You write a really good story, but you're also sending out some really powerful messages for the rest of us to take note of. Are you being courted by the movie industry by chance?
I had two directors look at the first book, and unfortunately, neither one bit. But maybe with Firestorm, things will be different, and we'll see how that goes. So I'd love them to be turned into movies, or I've even had people suggest that that this might be a great choice for a TV series.
Yeah, I can see that. The one thing I think that's different that might be interesting to a director would be the fire itself. The fact that an arson's tool is fire. And you always hear about guns and cannons and knives and things like that. You don't usually hear about fire being the weapon of choice.
Yeah, that's true. But yet and I think I mentioned this in the book. We have had real life stories of exactly what the character is a kind of a battalion chief who enjoys not only putting out fires but setting fires, and there have been real life cases of people like that.
Yeah,
I think there was a case in California of a guy that was he set hundreds of fires, and they finally figured out that he was the setter, because every time that a fire occurred, he was the first one to call it in, and they finally, it took them a while, but they put two and two together and said, something's not right here, and then they started following him around and figured out he was the guy. So,
and you always you do bring up the fact that when the bad guys that when they're being trying to be found out and then they are caught, that the bad guys try to make the people feel sorry for them, that there's something else going on with them, that they shouldn't deserve whatever punishment is coming.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's drawn from real life. They're very manipulative people, and they'll manipulate the system in whatever way they see to their own designs. We've seen that over and over with people like Ted Bundy and other killers, where they'll wait till the last moment to say, no, I want to bargain. I want to bargain with you so I have some more time to live my life. And I'll give up a few more secrets to basically play the game a little bit longer.
I think in your profession as an attorney, you are almost involuntarily put into a place where you have to develop psychological skills, in other words, observational skills, so you can sort of try to read between the lines when somebody's talking to you. And I think that's what you have integrated into the story, is a way to maybe explain or paint a picture with human psychology and all of its intricacies.
Yes, that's true. I think especially as a trial lawyer, you have to, when you first meet a client, you have to kind of size them up quickly. You have to figure out, are they capable of going through trial? Are they capable of, withstanding a deposition?
Mm-hmm.
Are they, you have to look at them and see the emotional side as well as the mental side, the psychological side. And I think as lawyers, that's a skill that you develop over time, especially when you're doing trial work, because it's very intense. It's very intense type situation that you brought into.
I found Firestorm on Amazon. It's getting really good reviews, and I have a copy here. If you'd like the one that was sent to me, first come, first serve, call me up, and I'll leave it here for you. The rest of us do have to go buy it. I did find it on Amazon. Do you have a website you want to recommend?
Yes, it's SolangeRitchie.com.
SolangeRitchie.com. Solange, thank you for being on the air with us, and stay safe in that weather down there.
Thank you, Larry. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. We will be right back.
Broadway's mega hit Mamma Mia is live on stage at Ocala Civic Theater May 17th and June 17th. ABBA favorites like Dancing Queen,